Approaching the shack and the unlikely couple resting there, the female warrior addressed me in a soft, resentful voice.
What do you want?
She asked what I wanted and mentioned an all-hearing brute who had apparently interrogated her in search of a medallion. Memories flooded me, and I was reminded of the old man in the slaughtered Albinoric village shrouded in perpetual darkness. He had entrusted me with half of a medallion, and I, believing her to be long dead, had promised to give it to an enigmatic woman named Latenna. Was this she?
Do you speak true?
Immediately recognizing it, the woman revealed herself to be none other than Latenna.
I'm Latenna. My apologies for my...
After apologizing for her initial hostility, she mentioned the all-hearing brute again. Who was she talking about? Then she came with a rather obtrusive request and asked me to take her to a land where something called Michaelis Haligtree was located. Upon accepting her proposal with a deep sense of resignation, she mentioned that the other half of the medallion was located in a castle on the mountaintops of the giants. I had never heard of such a place, and even worse, I was a stranger to this world. Was she simply unable to grasp the preposterous magnitude of her wish? In the end, she parted with her slumbering wolf and vanished from sight, while whispering that she would lend me her strength when needed.
And I will fight at your side.
Resting quietly for a while next to the magnificent wolf, I realized that I didn't have the slightest idea how to summon her. I had never been prone to sorcery, and was apparently in need of esoteric knowledge. Finally, out of the swamp, I passed through the soldiers' camp and gleefully destroyed what I hoped was meant as their evening meal. Leaving the darkness of the ravine behind, I eventually arrived at the church and found that gentle soul sitting where I had left him.
You're willing to give your glintstone key to me?
Glad I could help, and then gifting him the key, I felt humbled by his soft-spoken gratitude.
Now I can go back to the academy to resume my study of glintstone sorceries. And the very stars.
What a noble pursuit, a path without an ounce of selfishness or dreams of riches and power. Maybe the terrible forces of evil in this world wouldn't necessarily be victorious in the end. Heading out again, I felt joy spark deep within me and thought cheerily to myself that he was going to be all right. And once again, I reached the moist and swampy terrain. As I tried to avoid most of the unpleasant inhabitants of the wetlands, I sought inland while keeping the shoreline in sight. An abandoned ruin intrigued me, but as I approached the sorry remains of that ancient structure, I found myself confronted by a scrawny fellow with an unhealthy appearance. Wielding a sword, and more importantly, a horn, he needed to be dealt with immediately. This crumbling site wasn't unoccupied after all. I had come upon a band of weary soldiers resting in the soothing shade of the ruin. Not even able to consider my options, I was swept aside by base instinct and immediately terminated the heavy-eyed man on my left. Within minutes, most of the deplorables were gone, and I noticed that something was off. Boards had been put on top of what seemed to be a hidden entrance. Embraced by the darkness of the underground stairway, I felt the temperature drop sharply with every step. In the dank basement, I found a valuable heirloom of gold. Moreover, there was one of those grapes cherished by the fragile and blind maiden who had desperately sought to regain her vision. Breathing freely again in the warm air, I felt a sudden chill upon seeing an almost transparent apparition in the blinding rays of the summer sun. Surrounded by plants and grass rustling in the wind, it whispered without moving its lips about maidens and offering eyes. Maybe those words had made sense long ago. Now, however, they were nothing but faint echoes from a time forgotten by even the land itself. Soon I would have to return to the academy, but as I contemplated the coming days, something tore into me out of nowhere. I turned to a disgustingly overgrown animal. That foul creature wouldn't know what Seething with hatred, I cursed the terrain and the slippery ground, which obviously had caused this, and decided to sneak the other way around. Inside yet another of these crumbling ruins scattered across the land, a lonely figure stood in the shadows without moving a muscle. Approaching, I realized it was a maiden, one I had seen before.
Hello? Is someone there? Would you donate any strawberry grapes in your possession to me? I'm on a pilgrimage, in search of the distant light, and when I eat one of those grapes, I can feel the light in the back of my eyes.
Giving her another of those ghastly grapes I found utterly repulsive myself, she began to talk in riddles.
You're not like the others who give me grapes, are you? They rest their trembling hands upon me. Howling wordlessly, they gently stroke my eyes. Their frail fingers, emaciated. Yet still, they give me the grapes. But you seem somehow firmer.
Was she even sound of mind? As I considered her frail mental state, she thanked me, wishing me blessings from the fingers. Finally on the road again, I headed north, this time set on actually returning to the academy without distractions. And it felt good. Torrent had become, if not family, then at the very least a dear friend. We were now bound to each other, a quaint couple if there ever was one. Passing by fleshy and blister-filled pods spewing poison, I witnessed the sun disappear in seconds, making way for a heavy fog that covered the wetlands with disquieting speed. Upon returning to the barricaded stairs leading to the academy, I came across an overgrown bridge with what seemed to be a disagreeable creature, at least from a distance. It turned out to be another finger reader, like the one lurking in the shadows of Round Table Hold. This one was dressed differently, but just as nauseating to behold.
Please, I can read them. Your fingers, please, your fingers.
Did that ghastly crone want to touch my fingers?
Oh, bless you.
This felt wrong. She proceeded to speak words that, like others in her unsightly order, were incomprehensible to any sane person. Yet something did spark my interest.
Slaughter. Slaughter. The all-hearing slaughtered. But alas, it was for naught.
She mentioned the all-hearing.
But
Latenna had spoken of a Tarnished who went by that name. It sounded as if that culprit had been responsible for the gruesome massacre at the village. I felt violated. That ugly old hag seemed contagious, and only God knew what illness she bore inside the withering sack of worms that was her body. Hastening away from that foul-mouthed relic, I suddenly longed to see Thobbs again. Most likely, I would find him working at strange contraptions made for gazing at the night sky. But all of a sudden, I felt fierce stabs of pain and froze. He had not even been let into their halls of learning, but had instead been allowed a measly and old wooden desk outside, in the most damp and noisy part of the entire academy. They did not want him here. They never did. And when they were forced to open their doors, they killed him off like vermin. They needed to be punished, all of those filthy sorcerers. And as I came down on them in a frenzied fury, they cried out in pain and surprise when I ended them. Mad with rage, I made no attempt to proceed carefully, and merely ran past that rolling ball of iron, making a note to deal with whoever made that trap. Looking for someone to hurt, I tried a door in vain. And then, finally, I saw an opulently clad knight with an anything but friendly demeanor. This was what I needed.